Hello, Gareth here, and in this video we're going to paint a simple sea scene in watercolor using one brush and one color. So this is the brush. It's a Hake brush and it's 5/8 of an inch wide, about 1.5 centimeters. And this is the paint. It's Phthalo blue red shade, so a 15 milliliter tube. Okay, and this is my layout. So I've got tissue here for mistakes, then I've got cloth here and some tissue here for my brush, then here a water container, and here my palette, and here is my pad. It's about 9 by 12 inches. I prefer spiral bound pad with clips. This has metal clips at the bottom. With the water container, I normally use a big bucket, but it's difficult for you to see me using that, so I'm just using this small water container. Okay, so let's begin. So our brush has 3 sides. It has the flat side, the thin side, and the tip, and we're going to practice 3 brush strokes that use each of these sides. So let's begin with the flat side. So what I'm going to do is put my brush in the water, get some paint, and I'm going to make a watery mix. So I'm going to get a lot of water and make a watery mix. And now I'm going to make a brush stroke across the paper like this. Now I'm going to do the same but add some more pigment. So I want this to be stronger tone, and here we go again, brushing across the paper using the flat very slowly. And now I want to add a lot of pigment, make it very, very thick. And here we go, like that. So that's using the flat of the brush. I'm now going to do it again, but this time I'm going to move the brush quickly. So first, a watery mix, lots of water. Just dab it on the tissue to get rid of the excess water. And here we go, a quick stroke across. And again. And again. And you get this sparkling effect that is good for sea scenes and also grassy fields. So now, let's add some more pigment. Dab the brush on the tissue to get rid of the excess and have another go. Quick brush stroke across using the flat of the brush. And finally, lots of pigment, very thick mix. And here we go, brushing across quickly. So that's the first brush stroke I want to show you using the flat of the brush. So this kind of brush stroke, the slow one, you can use for painting mountains. And this brush stroke, which is a quicker one, you can use for painting sea scenes, for the sea and for grassy fields. Now the second brush stroke. So this time we're going to use the thin side of the brush. So make a watery mix, lots of water, and then move across using the thin. And again. And the one thing you can do with this as well is you can press down harder to make it wider. Like that, press down. And that's a good stroke if you want to paint an outcrop of land, a peninsula, when you're painting a sea scene. So now let's do a thicker mix. Okay, and here we go, across the paper slowly. And again. There we go. And now we want to do a thick mix. So lots of pigment. Getting this pigment and water balance is one of the most important things in watercolor painting, and also one of the most difficult things. So here we go. Yep, there we go. And one more. So let's repeat this, but this time doing a quick brush stroke. So make a watery mix. There we go. And here we go, across the paper quickly. Yep, and again. And let's try it with a slightly thicker mix. So some more pigment. And here we go. So this can be used for like ripples in the sea. And lots of pigment. Okay, I think we're ready. And a quick movement across the paper. And there we go. A lovely sparkling effect. So now the third brush stroke, we're going to use the tip of the brush. So just mix up some paint. And here we go. So we're going to do this kind of brush stroke, going down and going across. And this is wonderful for painting rocks. So make the mix a bit thicker. And then we can use the tip of the brush and we can do reflections like this. And to make the reflections more interesting, we can press down like that. So we can do thin strokes and thick strokes. So make a thick one and a thin one, and then a really thin one. And here too, a thick stroke and a thin one. Like that. And you can also do shadow. Get lots of pigment. And just go across like that. and there you've created some shadow. And when this dries a bit more, you can even use your fingernail and pick out some highlights, but we have to let it dry a bit more. So we'll just paint a few more. The important thing about when you paint these rocks is not to make them evenly spaced or the same height. Make them irregular. It's very difficult to do. Here we go. Going across, thick stroke, thin stroke, super thin stroke. Let's see if we can, it's still too wet, I think. Yeah. You have to wait quite a while, especially if it's very wet. But another thing you can do is you can wash out your brush, then get some tissue, dry it so it's really clean, wet it again, dab it on your tissue, so now it's clean and it's a little wet, not too wet, and you can drag it across. And then dry it again. And that creates a nice effect of sparkling light in the reflection. So let's try with the fingernail again. Ah, it's happening a little now, but it's still too wet. Yeah, that's very wet. So timing is very, very important. But you can see the kind of effect you can produce with your fingernail as well. Okay, now we're going to paint a simple sea scene using those 3 brush strokes. So first of all, let's make a mix. Now we don't want it too watery, but we don't want it too strong either. We're going to be doing mountains. Maybe this is good enough. Let's just test it. Yeah, that's fine. So we're doing mountains in the distance and we're using the flat of the brush. So basically we want an M shape, but we don't want it regular like that. So let's make one mountain bigger and then coming down like that, and then paint this quickly, fairly quickly, so that we don't get any cauliflowers. There we go. So now we're going to do the sea below these mountains, and that means a quick brush stroke using the flat of the brush. So I'm going to dab this on the tissue to get rid of excess water, and here we go. Really, you should test this on scrap paper. I might just do that. I've got some scrap paper here. Let's have a go. Yeah, that's great. So here we go. Quick brush stroke. If you've got a little gap like this, you can always use the thin or just leave it. Okay. And let's continue down. And there we go, a sea effect. Now the paint has dried, so let's paint an outcrop of land, a peninsula here. So get some water, get some pigment, and I want this mix to be stronger than the mountain, so it looks like it's closer. Maybe that will do. And we're using the thin of the brush, the thin side. I'm also using the corner a little. And the tip. So there we go, a little outcrop of land. Now let's do rocks in the foreground. So this needs to be quite a strong mix as well. Here we go. Let's have them here. So you need some space for the reflections. A little rock here, then some more rocks here, and then maybe one just over here. So not evenly spaced. And you can give them a bit more of an irregular shape if you like. So there we go. Now let's do the reflections. So using the tip of the brush and having a fat stroke and a thin stroke and going across. Fat stroke, maybe another fat stroke and some thin ones. Like that, and do one more. So some very fat strokes here, and then become thinner. And you want them to balance. So where you've got a high rock, you've got a very, very low shadow. A shadow that comes down, reflecting it. So it's balanced. Okay, now I need some more pigment. So get my tube. Here we go. Because I'm going to do the shadows now. So I'm doing this here because if I put it here, it's going to mix with the water and become watery, and I don't want that. I want it to be really thick. Let's wait a little. Ah, that's quite nice. Let's do this one. It helps if you know what basic shape the rock is. I didn't really think too much about that, and I should have done. But there you go. That will do. So I might wash my brush completely, get some tissue and dry it, and then do a line across here. Maybe a bit too late now, but just to make this look a little bit more interesting, I press the hairs together to make it thin. So I'm using the thin side of the brush, pressing the hairs together. There we go. And soon I will use my fingernail to add some highlights to the rocks, but it takes a while for it to dry. One more thing you can do while we're waiting, you don't have to do this, but you can do some more texture to the sea. So you can mix up some water and pigment and then go across here. First, let's test on our scrap piece of paper. Yeah, and then here we can do this. Have to be careful not to get too carried away with that, but it can look interesting. And we can also have down here some ripples. So here we go. I'll be using the thin of the brush. Just get my mix, dab on the tissue, and let's just practice. Yeah, not happy with that yet. Okay. Yeah, maybe that's fine. So here we go, just a few marks. Yeah, like that. And now I think we can use our fingernail. Might even be a bit too late. Timing is so important and so difficult. Also, with this technique, it's very easy to do too much. So I hope I'm not doing an example here of too much. We will see. Yeah. So maybe that's enough. Okay. So the final thing we're going to do is a boat. It's going to be our focal point and we're going to have it about here. So it's important to think how big it's going to be, because if it's very big it will not look good. If it's quite small, maybe it could work. Getting the size right is very important. I think about this kind of size. Okay, maybe this size will be okay. So let's have a go. So with the mix, I don't want it too strong, I don't want it too weak. So I can just test it on some paper, which I have done. And it's probably a good idea to get some scrap paper and to practice painting your boat. I'm using the tip of the brush for this. And there I do that technique, which is just to press down with the tip. And we can even do a person using the same technique, like that. Yeah, something like that. Doesn't have to be too great. Okay, here we go. So it's going to be about from here to here, and then the front of the boat coming down, the back, I was using the corner there. Okay, that will do. So this is a Japanese boat. They're very long. And here. And I'll use the corner for that. And a bit there. And then let's add a person. Here. Okay, there we go. It's just a very rough thing, but it just adds to the painting and creates a focal point. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please have a go and let me know how you get on. I'd love to hear from you. Bye for now and happy painting.